Finally, an actual audio product that audiophiles want to hear about. Yeah, that's right. We're coming back for a little bit, and I still have some truly wireless options that I'm still going to go over later. But I wanted to put this one in here just so that the audiophiles do not forget that hey, we're an audiophile channel. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to review some audiophile products. So I came back with a bang, I must say, because this is very unlike any other audiophile product that I've had on this channel for quite some time. So let's go ahead and pull this forward here. And as I am doing that, you can go ahead and read in the back what that box says. That's right, we are looking at the SRS 3100 ear speaker system. That consists of the STAX L300s and the SRM 252S. That would be the ear speakers right here. And yeah, these are not headphones. These are ear speakers, very different. They function similarly, but they're not the same thing. I'd like you to know. So it's these, the L300s, and the STAX SRM 252S ear speaker driver unit, which is exclusive to this particular unit right here. And, well, it is what it is. It is exactly what you think it is. It is to power the ear speakers, and it is proprietary to STAX ear speakers or other electrostatic drivers that have the same connector as the STAX units themselves, which would be this one right here. So you can see that particular connector right there. Anywho's, as far as the contents go, it comes with the L300s themselves, which are these bad boys right here. It comes with the SRM 252S driver unit, which I have already shown. It comes with a basic pair of RCA cables, which I'm not sure if this is standard across all of them, but I mean, look, it is thin, but it is very flexible. It has a decent amount of length, and I have it pretty much cut down to this size because I have it hooked up to my tower now. And that particular tower is my 789 at the bottom. Then I have my SMSL SU-8 at the top, followed by the STAX SRM 252S, and then the shit sis at the very top. And it doesn't necessarily go in that order from like top to bottom or bottom to top, but they're stacked that way so that it's a nice little pyramid formation, and it's very clean on a desk setup. So as far as the power supply is concerned, well, it comes with this. This right here is the official STAX AC adapter. Now, there is one little problem to that. It is running 100 volts. Interesting. 100 volts of electricity, and those, well, they're not exactly compatible in the US. Please do not use this in the United States. If you are going to buy a set of these, you're going to be forced to buy an additional transformer, which I know it sounds like, a little complicated, but it's very simple, I promise you. Look, this one is running 120. That is what you need. As long as yours is running 120, you should be fine. And another thing, it has to have a reverse polarity. And by reverse polarity, I mean to say that the outer ring is positive. If you can see it right here, the outer ring is positive and the inner ring is negative, which goes against the traditional transformer that is sold. So if you happen to just have one lying around that has this type of connector right there, please make sure that it is 120 or 110 volts and that it has the reverse polarity, because if it does, you're able to use it. But if not, you're going to screw up the entire thing and probably burn your house down. So yeah, little bit of danger there. You should be perfectly fine. It's really not rocket science. It's just a little precaution you have to take. Now, as far as the build quality is concerned, well, look. Okay, so the L300s are not going to win any awards for build quality. Like, look, you don't buy these for the build. These things are mediocre to say the least. Like, first of all, the cables are non-removable, and they say that it is because of like safety reasons, because electrostatic headphones and ear speakers and whatnot. But now that they've released the L500 and L700 Mark IIs with the removable cables, I don't know. I really don't know. Either way, you're not going to be taking these anywhere with you anytime soon. You're going to be using these at a desk setup, and I hope you realize that before you even pick these up in the first place. Now, the cables themselves, this is a very sturdy plug right here. It feels very sturdy. Rubber cable, it's a ribbon cable, 5 wires running across. Ribbon cable right there. It's got those blue dotted lines. If you could please just focus. Blue dotted lines, very beautiful. But yeah, I mean, the cable's some decent length. I can use it at my desk setup. If I had to say, this is probably around 7 feet of length, maybe 8 feet of length. Now, the pads on the L300 are very, very thin. They are. Like they're practically a cloth material where the pads should be. There is some padding, don't get me wrong. It's extremely, extremely thin. However, this is not a problem because, well, I'll get to that in the comfort section, but just know that that is not really a problem. The 252S, on the other hand, is built quite sturdy, and I find this to be pretty tough to break. Now, listen. Yeah, this thing is not going to break on you anytime soon. The entire unit is made out of a pretty good metal, honestly. I'm not going to say it's 100% premium, and you can definitely hear the hollowness inside the unit, but I mean, it is what it is. The volume knob, which is also used to turn the unit on or off, is made of metal, and it also feels quite nice. Listen to this. Listen to my AC, come on. Now, I'm not going to say it feels super premium because I'm going to be honest, it does not. But it feels smooth and it doesn't introduce any odd crackling or interruptions through either channel. I will say, though, that when adjusting the volume on the L300s, the volume does seem to increase a bit more exponentially rather than completely linear, so to speak. At least, this is how it seems up to the 11 to noon range on it, which would be approaching right here. This is what I end up putting it up to, more or less. This is the max I would set it to. Maybe this much if I have I'm running a video game or something and it's a lower volume, that kind of thing. But usually somewhere between 10 to 12 is where I run this at. And once you start approaching, it's no sound, no sound, no sound, no sound, loud, 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 boom, limit, right there. So it's not very linear, which is, I mean, not such a huge deal as long as it gets to where you need it to be, but yeah, do note that it does get pretty sensitive and does increase more as you scale up. Now, as far as the I/O on the 252S is concerned, it only has a pair of RCA inputs and a pair of RCA outputs. Of course, it also has the input for the power supply, which it also shows right there. You need reverse polarity. The RCA outs, which are shown right here, are a fixed line level, which means that the 252's volume setting does not affect the volume of the signal that leaves a unit. For example, this means that you could do what I did and pass the signal via RCA from the 252S to something like a shit sys, which then takes the signal and passes it to another unit while also giving the sys control of the volume. So, from there, it goes out to the RCAs to my JBL LSR 30X powered monitors. And nothing from the DAC to my AAA 789 to my 252S affects the sound in any way. It does not become distorted. It does not become affected by the volume knob. Nothing. It's just a perfect pass-through. And then the sys is where it adjusts. Also, the unit can be completely off and still pass the signal along to the unit. Now, as far as the comfort is concerned, based on how I described the build quality, I must have made these sound pretty uncomfortable, but I guarantee that they are actually quite the opposite. Because of their incredibly light plastic build, these feel like a feather on your head. I'm not even joking. These are incredibly light. The clamp is right down the middle. It never feels tight or constricting, which coupled with the weight makes for an incredibly light and secure feeling headphone. Definitely a plus for these. Definitely a plus. Now keep in mind the fitment of these does change if you wear glasses. So as a reference here, I'm going to go ahead and show the class. I wear Ray-Ban Clubmasters, and they do affect how they sit on my head, and they do affect the sound. More on how that may be a good thing later in the review. Now, the 250S, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. No matter how hard I tried, I was simply unable to find the 252S comfortable on my head, regardless of its placement. Anyways, now let's jump into the sound. To my ears, wearing glasses does affect the sound. It does. If you ask me, however, it sounds like it affects it in a positive manner. So it widens the soundstage just a teensy bit. I mean just a teensy bit. It makes the overall sound a tad more full, and it lets the intensity of the sound take a tiny step backwards and let the instruments kind of breathe, which results in a less overblown kind of sound by comparison. It also makes the overall fit feel a tad more snug and more secure. Never uncomfortably so, though. Now, from here on out, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to evaluate their performance without my glasses, as this is the most common type of way people would listen to them. And then at the end of each section, I will try again using my glasses and report the differences. And yes, there will be differences. So let's start with the bass here. The bass on these is on the neutral to bass light side of things. It still has a good thump, but not by much. It's very on the south side of neutral. The bass extension is decent, but the roll-off begins quite soon. Without an EQ present, I wouldn't really consider these for like bass-intensive genres like EDM. I'll give an example here. Zealots of Stockholm. At the minute 26 mark, the bass note hits with decent authority but never forward. The detail is like alright, but it's nothing stellar either. At 307, the bass valley rolls off quite quickly. I'm not gonna lie. Its recovery does occur at a decent point in time, but it is quite slow on the uptake. Like it returns to the acceptable level like near the end of it all. Another example, Dream On, the postmodern jukebox cover. I don't know why I'm like gesturing with this thing. Ding-a-ling. The string bass is ever so slightly more forward than neutral, but it is well separated from the rest of the instrument, so it always sounds well defined-ish without detracting from the experience. Another example, The Hammer by Deathclock. It is slightly on the forward side with that bass section. Overall definition of that is average, honestly. Now, after I put on my glasses, there might be a tad more detail and resolution to that bass note in Zealots of Stockholm. Like it doesn't do a huge difference to the bass, but I do hear something, just something. Now let's jump into the mids. As far as the mids are concerned, the female vocals are definitely forward and crystal clear. I'd be really hard pressed to call these like thin, but I definitely would not call them thick. Extra thick! By any means, they definitely lean towards the thin side of things. An example, Dream On, the postmodern jukebox cover. At 2:31, the cello solo sounded great and detailed, but just slightly on the thinner side of things. It's not quite as forward as I'd like it to be. It's very distinguishable on the slower portion, but as the female singer returns and everything starts to pick back up, it fades a bit too much into the background for my tastes. Male vocals are not quite as forward. They are definitely a little more in line with the instruments. However, they are on the slightly softer side of things, making them a slightly more comfortable listen. And look, call me crazy, but using these with my glasses on made the mids breathe a little better. And in turn, the cello solo in Dream On sounded a little more forward and more detailed for some reason. This time, I could hear it in all its entirety, even as the female singer returns. I know, it's strange. It's really strange. But I mean, it is what it is. As far as the treble's concerned, okay, here's where we start to get a little polarizing. These are definitely a bright headphone. They are cold sounding. They have excellent treble extension, and they have just bundles and bundles of detail. I mean, just like these things definitely punch well above their price range in particular circumstances. They do have a sibilant sounding S and TH region, but it's absolutely bearable in the majority of tracks. Now, I've never heard beyerdynamics, which are known for being treble cannons, but these are one of the most forward-sounding headphones I've heard. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And I have heard the HD800s. I own the HD800s. So, as a result, I've had to use EQ on these, for more than just treble, by the way. I'll explain later. Once I put on my glasses, that forwardness of the treble response comes slightly down and allows the congested upper end to breathe comfortably. I'm sorry. I wrote down Baron Gang by skill. Oh god, autocorrect is killing me right now. In Bangarang by Skrillex, the entire upper end tends to sound a bit congested to me. So when applying the glasses method, all the instruments become more tangible and three-dimensional, so to speak. Like, I don't know, I'll go ahead and explain what I mean farther in the soundstage and the imaging portions, but to put it simply, without glasses, the treble just kind of feels a little more two-dimensional, you know, like they exist on a single plane, whereas when you put on the glasses and increase that soundstage a bit, and everything starts to breathe a little better, the treble has room, the instruments have like room to be separated and to exist on different levels. Now we get to the soundstage. This one's going to be kind of weird. Look, these things are incredibly, and I mean incredibly open sounding. Like it's more, the soundstage is more on the narrow side than the wide side, but it has a strange shape to it. The instruments on a particular side sound like they lie on like a, okay, time to get a little trippy here. Like on a vertical plane of sound on the left and on the right. So imagine the traditional soundstage to be like a round area around you, right? This particular soundstage kind of sounds like that area, but the sounds can only lie on particular vertical planes on a spectrum. Now, forward, like in front of you, on top of you, underneath you, behind you, whatever. But the sounds do not exist in an open area. There is an open area. It's like this. It's kind of like the sounds are playing the floor is lava and they kind of have to like stick to a certain section and they can only breathe and expand in that particular like rectangular plane. So there are multiple around you like dominoes floating in space. And whenever a sound occurs and it spreads across the area, it only stays on that plane. The plane is somewhat on the thick side, so it still travels quite the distance, but you can't help but hear those like vertical boundaries within each section of the side. It's weird. These are, I mean, like I said before, these things are an absolute like must listen to if you are an audiophile, because these things are gonna, either you're gonna appreciate their weirdness or you're gonna dislike their weirdness, but you have to try it out for yourself. It's weird. So glasses method increased the soundstage a tad, just a tad. The benefits aren't really in the soundstage, but in the frequency response. But yeah, just do know that it does make it a little wider. Now, as far as the imaging is concerned, sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's questionable. I'll give you an example. Hotel California by the Eagles. The airplane at second 20 is not very easy to track, particularly because it is traveling from rectangle to rectangle. Like we said, those rectangular planes. However, the other imaging elements in the track are quite good and easy to track. Glasses method didn't really improve or impede imaging capabilities, but did space them out a bit more. Every sound was like, it was just a bit farther away from me, but that is to be expected. After all. Right before we go ahead and jump into the conclusion, I want to get some notes out of the way. After listening to these, they weren't quite for me in stock configuration, despite the benefits. So I decided to play with a bit of EQ. And the EQ settings that I applied are as follows. I got a +2, well, let me go ahead and just show you that instead. Here, just to go ahead and show what I'm referring to, this is my notepad right there. So I applied those changes to 30 Hz, 1.5 kilohertz, 6.5 kilohertz, and 9.5 kilohertz. Now, I'm not the EQ master or anything, but I went ahead and tried it out and got some decent results. So the change at 30 Hz was simply to make these more enjoyable and bring out the sub bass for the EDM tracks, which, I mean, since pretty much only those types of tracks will see a difference at this level. And yeah, it definitely did not affect the sound in a negative way. And it did not introduce some distortion to the low end either, or some bloat, thankfully. The decrease at 1.5 kilohertz was to slightly reduce the ever so slight shoutiness experienced in the mids. Like it really wasn't much, but a 1 decibel reduction definitely improved what I was hearing. And the adjustments of 6.5 kilohertz and 9.5 kilohertz were to bring down the forwardness of the ear speakers while still keeping them in the bright range. So yeah, well, once again, when I use EQ, I don't use EQ to make them sound like just like a particular frequency or just like another headphone, because, well, at that point, what's the point of owning headphone A if you're going to make them sound like headphone B? Just get headphone B. But I do apply the EQ whenever I feel like there's something so incorrect that a change must be done. And I change it only ever so slightly, just so that you can still experience what this headphone actually sounds like, but with a bit of corrective measures taken. Now for the conclusion. These things are a really, and I mean really, interesting audiophile product. I guarantee that they are like nothing you've ever tried before, because electrostatic ear speakers are just that different. You think you know what a headphone sounds like? Congratulations, these don't sound like that at all. I would say that these are best for audio enthusiasts that have heard their fair share of traditional audiophile headphones and are now seeking something different. You know, if you are someone that collects a couple to various headphones for music in your collection, these are an excellent addition to that, since they'll offer a very different experience and definitely have their advantages over traditional headphones, such as the, incredible comfort, the extreme openness, and superb detail. Now, for someone who only wants a single personal audio product for their musical needs, I can't really say I recommend these, honestly. Like, look, the SRS 3100 combo is a very niche product. They definitely have their pros and cons, and I think that although these really are a must-try for any audio enthusiast, there are better offerings at this price range, which goes, by the way, for, let's say, $600 to $800 used. New or pre-owned, depending on which one you get. There are things that are like more well-rounded and appeal to more use cases, in my opinion. Would I keep these? Here's the thing. I like their sound. I do like it. Not to keep as my primary headphone for sure, but I do think they have some very strong advantages to them. I'm not completely convinced to keep them, honestly, even though the whole, imported from Japan and unique functionality of these, that they're electrostatic. They're not headphones, they're ear speakers. And get it right, bitch, they're ear speakers. They're special. They're a very different and special product. The wow factor to them hasn't like truly worn out for me. It has a little bit because, well, obviously it's not a cool new product anymore. Now it's just a cool product. But I don't know, their sound just doesn't really convince me. As a product, these are really cool and special, but then as a device meant for just listening to music, they are great. But, I think that if I were to keep these, it would be for the sake of future comparisons and to perhaps one day acquire an SRS 353X, which is the older brother to these. It's much larger, by the way, and it is capable of powering much more demanding ear speakers. I would get that, some of the new L500 Mark IIs and L700 Mark IIs, and compare them to this as well. I think that's probably the only reason I would end up keeping these, because I don't know. I honestly don't know. And as far as keeping these, you'll have to wait until the following video. And yes, there will be following videos featuring these, so stick around for that. And yeah, it's gonna do it. But my thoughts still stand on these, that whether you're gonna end up liking them or not, these are definitely worth your time to look at, because they are just very different. They're not like something else you've ever experienced. They really are special. So that's gonna do it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do down below. Don't forget to check out the Patreon. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.